Hey everyone, welcome back to yet another video on Insurgency Sandstorm. So, what is going on with Insurgency Sandstorm these days, and why am I labouring this particular point? Well, it's been about a month since the last patch dropped, and frankly, it's just not good enough. Sure, apparently they fixed a couple of things here and there, they've dropped some guns, awesome, and they've introduced Team Deathmatch, which quite frankly just doesn't belong in Sandstorm as far as I'm concerned. But my biggest bugbear, personally, is that performance has actually gotten worse. I can't play co-op at the moment because I'm running around getting 15 frames per second. Luckily I don't have that issue in PvP, but that leads me on to other things. And those other things are, well, to be honest, I've kind of stopped playing Sandstorm, and it's not just me, plenty of my other friends have actually stopped at the moment. Insurgency seems to have a real problem retaining its actual player base, which is a hell of a shame because, as I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it, at its core it is an excellent game. Now, one of the issues it might have is that it is a little bit too niche, and I did get into a little bit of a spat with a Twitch streamer about this the other day because I said one of the issues the game has, of course, is that it's quite niche. He said, no, it's not niche, it sold 500,000 copies. And I thought to myself, is that what I said? Because it sounds like somebody needs to buy a dictionary and look up the meaning of niche. Also, I wasn't talking about sales figures, but seeing as they were brought up, let's go there. Because it's going to help explain exactly the issue with the low player base that the game has at the moment. So, 500,000 copies sold, but if you go onto the Steam charts and look at the actual player stats for the last few months, it makes for grim reading. In fact, I'm just looking at it right now, and for the last month it says there's an average of 1,842 players. There's a peak of 3,935, but the important thing is that average. And the gain, or rather the lack of gain, is that they've lost 6.58% of their player base. Now, what is the actual player base that we have of 500,000 copies sold? Well, I'm just going to round it up because my maths is terrible. Let's just say it's 2,000 players a month at the moment. What is that as a percentage of 500,000 copies sold? Well, that makes for really grim reading. That is a 0.4 engagement rate on their player base, which, as I said, makes for very grim reading and worries me for the future of Insurgency Sandstorm. So, what could actually be done to bring those players back? How can we get players in, and how can we stop them from leaving? Because the stats show that the game is dying, and that is a worry. So, I've come up with a few ideas on how we can make Insurgency great again. So, starting at number 1. This is the easiest to say, probably not the easiest to do, but I've said it before in other videos, and many other people have said it constantly. But we need more content and more modes. We're all sick of looking at the same 6 maps, playing the same modes, which are all the same colour, and we're just bored of them. So yes, we want fresh new content now. What I hope that NWI don't do is just do a rehash of some old maps and old modes. So what I'm saying is I don't want to play Ministry, I don't want to play Pange ever again. I enjoyed them at the time in Source, but I don't ever want to see them again. So no rehashes, we want quality content. And just as we don't want to see old maps, we don't really want to see old modes. Now, we've already had a complete, well, in my opinion, balls up with the introduction of Team Deathmatch. Didn't really want to see that here, didn't really belong. So what I don't want to see is stupid stuff like Capture the Flag or Battle Royale mode, because that is what's really scaring me the most these days. But you know what I mean. We want some tactical, well thought out modes, but no kind of cliched game modes that we've seen in so many other games. So I hope they do that, or rather don't do that. And one last thing when it comes to content, let's have some different colours. Let's have some Arctic maps. Let's have some jungle maps. I know it's called Insurgency, but it's not called Middle Eastern Insurgency, is it? You can have an Insurgency anywhere you want, really. So let's make it interesting, because frankly, I am sick of the beige. I'm sick of the sandy colours. It's just driving me bananas. I don't want to see that anymore. Let's, diversify a bit, make it a little bit more interesting, make it a little bit more visually stimulating, because at the moment, just looking at it, it's boring. NWI, take note. There's more colours than just beige in your paint box. Alright, moving on to point number 2. Ranking needs sorting out. As a species, we tend to thrive on achievement and competition. It's that whole survival of the fittest thing. But the way Sandstorm is designed means anything that has any consequence within the game, i.e. your weapons, is all unlocked. Therefore, you have the dilemma of not having anything worth fighting for. You've got nothing to aim for and achieve, apart from, in this case, the ranking system. However, here's the problem with the ranking system within the game. There's no way for you to show off your rank. Now, what I heard, and I think is a brilliant idea, I was actually on Lord Quode's Twitch stream the other day. If you've not seen Lord Quode do his thing on Sandstorm, I suggest you do. He is an utter beast at the game, and what he was suggesting is some kind of ranked league tables, so that way people can see where they stand in the rankings and compare themselves to other players, whilst giving them something to aim for. Because if Sandstorm as a whole is a dying game, let's say, for argument's sake, then the competitive part of Sandstorm is very dead, with queuing for ranked games taking an excess of 10 minutes quite regularly. And unfortunately, nobody in their right mind is going to queue that long to play a game which lasts maybe 5 minutes. There's just no incentive to do so, which now brings me on to point 3. I think NWI should seriously think about introducing item drops like you get in CSGO. And although this is only a personal opinion, I think people would come back for tradable drops. I'm not sure how viable it is from a business point of view, but the only reason I ever played PUBG or CSGO as much as I did was because of the Steam tradable market items I got. Okay, enough of the shameful confessions. Let's move on to point number 4, which is bring back the single player campaign idea that NWI originally had. Now, if I remember correctly, when Sandstorm was originally announced, it was going to feature the story of a female Iraqi freedom fighter, and her campaign story was going to be flexible enough that it could be played as a standalone single player or as a 4-player co-op. However, game development constraints being what they are meant that NWI were forced to drop the campaign mode and concentrate on the multiplayer aspect of the game. One silver lining to all of this though is that at the time of cancellation I read in Game Informer that NWI were leaving the option of returning to the single player campaign open, but whether they ever do or not remains to be seen. But moving swiftly on to point 5, which would be the introduction of a multiplayer campaign. Insurgency, by its very nature, is what you would call a skirmish simulator, and the rounds themselves tend to be very short when compared to other games. So what I would like to see is a more sustained, meaningful mode done in the style of, say for example, the Rising Storm 2 Vietnam multiplayer campaign, which strung together several different maps which players had to fight through until one side or the other won the war. After all, how cool would it be to say have a campaign based on the Battle of Ramadi being played over several different maps, with the winners of, say, the first map getting a buff like extra artillery support or a A-10 Warthog being called in. And overall it would be quite nice to have sort of a substantial battle going on to play, instead of the usual, as I say, 1 map, 2 round skirmish deals that we're used to. And finally, the 6th and final way we could return greatness to Insurgency Sandstorm is with modding. Now I'm pretty biased, I love mods. I think the sign of a great game is whether or not it can be modded. Mods elevate games to unspeakable heights. In fact, there's not enough mods out there, but there are a load of modders waiting to get their hands on Insurgency. So come on NWI, help us unleash the creative beasts within us all. There's work to be done. And with that final point, we conclude the video. Let me know what you think of those ideas. Do you actually have any ideas of your own? How do you think we could improve Insurgency? Are you still actually playing Insurgency? Have you given up on it? Where do you think it's going to go in the future? Leave your comments down below and let's have a conversation about it. Anyway, that's all we have for this time. Please think about leaving a like and a sub. It helps the channel out a lot and I'd certainly appreciate it. And if you want to see some raw, unfettered, dramatic gameplay, I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday over on Twitch. But until next time, my friends, this is HipKelt signing off.